Welcome to the Fighter YouTube channel. Today, it's really cold outside, but dyno testing the Rabbit, which is running beautifully. I just retimed it the other day and adjusted some stuff, and holy crap did it perk up. It went from being like, I kind of want to go, to like, oh baby, let's go! Very exciting, because we're about to take it through on the dyno, so the fact that it's tuned up real nice right now is perfect. That, and I got propane working again. It rips really good. And then we're going to load it up and take it over to TMS Diesel, where we're going to use their dyno to see what we're making for power. Let's get it. Getting loaded at 1500. Our RPM's off, which it very well could be a little bit. 2200 RPM is what we pulled to. we dynoed the car. It's now like a solid week later that I'm wrapping this up, so bear with me. It was quite the day. We got it over there. Friggin', it was cold outside. I had to let it warm up forever. They were running late, so then we finally got it in the door. Once we got inside, right, the Rabbit doesn't have a tachometer, so and their photo tach was at their other shop, so we had to wait so they would get their photo tach. And so then finally we had everything together and we could actually start it. To set up the dynamometer, right, Mustang dynamometer, you have to basically do these coast downs where you take it up to a certain speed and let it roll down. It calculates the losses and whatnot. And so they're like mild pulls, so you don't really get your foot in it. But by the second one the technician was doing, I just poked my head in and looked at the gauges, and they're all like all the way up on the temperatures, blinking red. And I was like, holy shit. So I flip on the radiator fan. Thank God I added a switch for it. The water temp was at 160 degrees Celsius, right? Water boils at 100. And the oil temp was at 143 degrees Celsius. So the thing was literally smoking out of every crevice and probably boiling its oil. And so after that good scare to start everything off, we went and got the appropriate fans, and I found that my radiator, which fan thermostat, which would normally kick it on at like 90, was actually one of the plugs had come off of it, which is why it overheated so badly. And then it was still running fine after that, no issues. So kind of bulletproof in that regard. So then we went ahead and proceeded with doing a couple pulls. I think we did pretty sure we did 3 power runs. So first power run was just diesel fuel, no propane injection. Yeah, and the pulls were done in 5th gear. And so, I was pretty excited. Here we are, winding it up. Cool, must have made big power. Check the dyno readout. 75 horsepower. Woo-wee! And then that's a real number, so 75 horsepower to the wheels. Tough, I thought I was going to make easily over 100 with the rig, the way it's set up, especially with the turbo. And so that was pull number 1. So 75 with just diesel. And so then pull 2, I turned on propane injection. We made 80 horsepower. So we got 5 horsepower propane injection. Woo-wee! At this point the car was running great, It had made it through the pulls, nothing seemed wrong, whatever. So I was like, but I was fairly disappointed, honestly. Again, I was expecting well over 100 horsepower to this thing based on the old seat dyno. It felt fast. And so now pull number 3, I went out and I was like, all right, I'm going to turn this propane up a bunch, because you should get a 25% horsepower increase, which, 75 horsepower, you would hope you'd get to 100 horsepower, 25%, yada yada. Something like that, more than 5. I guess you wouldn't get to 100. Don't check my math. And so I did, and we actually made less power. I want to say we made 70 or something, which is kind of strange. And then he was like, oh, I didn't turn up your fuel. So I was looking at it, and the car now was starting to, at idle, it was misfiring on one of the cylinders, which it shouldn't do. When it's warmed up and everything's going all right, there should be no misfiring. And so I was like, that is odd. And he's like, maybe your injector's stuck, or, and I'm like, all right, we can't do another pull with it like this, I don't think. And then so we talked about it more, and I was like, we kind of come to the conclusion that we probably bent a rod with all that propane, and you can actually see it on the corresponding dyno chart. So it has this beautiful arc. In fact, the car has this lovely power curve. It goes whoop, and it comes up to a very, it constantly gains horsepower over your RPM. So I think peak horsepower is at like 4,000 RPM or something like that. And it comes right up on that last dyno with that extra propane, and you can see it go down. And so it would make sense that we probably bent something. We tried to make more than 80 horsepower by injecting more propane, and the cylinder pressure got too high for probably the rods, and one of them or several of them bent. I would bet just one. And then we lost power because we were losing all that compression. Really interesting, honestly. And then for those who care, I think the peak torque number we made was like 114. So 114 pound-feet of torque and 80 horsepower is what we're putting out, which is a little underwhelming. All things considered, we're also using a Mustang dyno, because I was talking to the technician a bit about it, because I was surprised they're so low. And Mustang dynos are, not to say harsh, but they are very realistic. You can hook your car up a number of ways to different dynamometers, and you might get a better reading, but it's a good baseline. And the important thing to me is that the baseline is something to now improve upon, right? So we have a set power number we made with a fairly well-tuned setup. Now, when I go and make modifications, I can come back and say, hey, how did we do? Did we improve on our base number? Did we get worse? Because now you need to have a reference point. The other interesting thing to keep in mind here is everyone goes, oh, but you know, my 2001 Subaru Outback has 143 horsepower. Why does your car only have 80? This is valid. Keep in mind, manufacturers advertise your crank horsepower. So they give you the highest number that they can give you legally. So at your wheels, if you have a 143 horsepower Subaru, you might only be making 100 by the time it gets to your wheels, and your car weighs 4,000 pounds. What's important with the Rabbit is that I do want to make more horsepower out of it. I want to take that 80 as a baseline, and now I'm going to change some things. Better manifolds, better flowing head, put better rods in it so they don't bend halfway through a pull. The cool part is the car is super light. It weighs 1,760-ish pounds. So even with, let's say we get to 100 horsepower, it's a freaking fun car to drive on the street. It rips. It rips at 80 horsepower, which is why I thought it might make more than 100. And so going forward, you know, we're gonna work on flow. We're gonna probably port the head. The block needs to be sent out at this point because it is now thoroughly pooched with both the previous turbo explosion and pieces of metal going through it, and now whatever internal got damaged from the dyno day. Once we rebuild it, I think the new target's gonna be over 100 as starters, and then working up from there with each successive dyno day. Yeah, that's what's coming. More mods, good baseline, power improvements in the future. Along with, honestly, we need to complement that with, like, you know, brakes probably and stuff. So that's where it's going. Stay tuned. As always, thank you for watching. Drop a like, subscribe, see where the build goes, take tips and tricks for your own, whatever. Thank you.